In our gospel today, we hear Jesus say, 10 were cleansed, were they not? Where are the other 9? Has none but this foreigner returned to give thanks to God? Many scholars like to point out that the Israelites were the ones that did not return to give thanks to God. And that this might be Luke's way of continuing to remind his readers of the failings of supposedly devout people to recognize God's work in their lives. The failure for us may be to recognize God's work in our lives. It could be suggested that the return of the Samaritan is related to his astonishment that a Jew, that is, Jesus, could heal someone from a nation that Jews so mistrusted and disliked. So that's one possible explanation of why only one returned. I have another. In Leviticus chapter 13, we learn about the fate of lepers. It says, "The priest shall declare him unclean. The garments of one so afflicted shall be rent, and the hair disheveled, and the mustache covered. And the individual shall cry out, 'Unclean, unclean.' And as long as the infection is present, the person shall be unclean. And being unclean, that individual shall dwell apart, taking up his residence outside the camp." So imagine, if you will, what it might be like to live like this. Move out of your house, away from your wife, your family, your friends. Announce not only by your appearance, but by crying out to all that you are unclean and you are to be avoided. This is not a sin. You are not sinful as a leper. The easy part about being sinful is you go to the temple and offer up a sacrifice and you are reunited with the community. No, you are unclean and out of order. You are unable to live within your community or worship at the temple. Now imagine you have a chance for wholeness, for restoration and healing. The 10 cry out to Jesus for mercy. We have no idea how long they have been apart from their family and community. But I'll tell you that even a short amount of time would be very painful for me. They're instructed by Jesus to show themselves to the priests. And they go. And on the way they realize they've been healed. What would you do in those circumstances? I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't waste any time with the priests or with Jesus until I had a chance to go home. My wife and to my family. I'd probably be praying in thanksgiving on the way. But the priests would certainly wait in the instance of me. So, we have lepers today. There are certainly some with Hansen's disease, probably not in our community. That's very treatable today with antibiotics. But we have lepers, none the same. There are those who are separated from our community, either by their choice or often by our choice. Those who used to be a couple and now are single, either by divorce or maybe by death or for some other reason. They used to be invited to get-togethers and dinners, but now it's uncomfortable with all of the couples there to have a single join them. And so they don't come anymore. There are those who are unemployed and can no longer afford the same things that we do. Or maybe underemployed, and they work a couple of minimum wage jobs and still have to go to the food pantry because they can afford their mortgage, but they can't eat. There are many other types of people that are lepers, either by our choice or by their own. Maybe they're a little smelly and they're disheveled, the way that Leviticus tells us that lepers are supposed to be. But nonetheless, they're in our communities. And maybe we don't even see them, like Lazarus was not seen by the rich man, even though he took up residence at the rich man's door. But maybe it's time that we opened our eyes and did see them. In a few moments, you'll approach the altar and you'll receive Jesus in your hand. And you'll take him into your body, and Jesus will become part of you, and you will become part of Jesus. And despite the fact that I think the question is very trite, we must ask ourselves, what would Jesus do? When you were baptized, you were anointed as priest, prophet, and king. Jesus would send them to the priests. You are both Jesus and priest. You have the power to heal and to forgive. You have the power to welcome people back into our community, to make our community whole, to make them whole.